His songs were the soundtrack of our lives for half a century. Pop royalty Leo Sayer joins us ahead of his Twin Towns show on the Gold Coast on September the 6th. Leo, it's wonderful to see you. How are things on the
Hi.
New South Wales Southern Highlands?
Well, frosty as we speak. It's kind of early in the morning as we recording this, and we just had a very frosty night. But I've got to tell you, on Tuesday I'm going to be in the UK where it's summer. It's the opposite, season. So I'm going over there to do some shows. I work all of the month of July, and basically it goes into the start of August, and then I'm back in August. I think the first thing I'm doing when I get back is the Monday Broken Hill Festival, which is going to be fun. And then we've got a series of dates, yeah, leading up to Twin Towns, just after we play Sydney. So what they've done, my agent and my manager, is we've put together a series of shows. We're promoting it ourselves, basically. But we've got it's this going to be pretty much the same show as I do in the UK. There's no support act. It's a basically almost 2 hour show. Some nights it goes over that, if unless there's a curfew at the venue. So it's a long show, and that's what I'm preparing to do in the UK. And would you believe I do the same show in the UK and in Ireland? We're also going to, as I do in Australia. So the same is I have this remarkable career, which is all over the world, as you know. But the remarkable thing is the same songs, the fans seem to like the same songs, when we perform them. So there's a few rarities from albums, songs like Bedsitter from Another Year, and Stormy Weather from the Leo Sayer 1977 album. Um, but and that's by popular demand. But the funny thing is, the same popular demand is here. So people kind of pick out the. I mean, there's still songs I won't be able to fit in, so there'll still be some stuff missing, but not the hits, of course. We can cover all of that. But God, there've been so many, hits on. If they've not been chart hits, they've been hits on radio. So like a song like Orchard Road probably went to 20 in the charts and much further down over here. But it's one of the most requested songs. So what can you do? You can't leave them out.
Well, the thing is about your career, Leo, it's been so broad. So today I'm really intrigued by your progression from kind of a novelty act wearing the Perot look, Marcel Marceau, into one of the biggest pop stars of all time. And that to me is intriguing. And we go back to the Silverbird album, don't we, in the early 1970s. And this was really a huge step for you. But even at that point, it was kind of an experimental recording, wasn't it?
Yeah, I passed an audition with David Courtney, who became my co-writer on that album and the next album as well. And also we'd already written the Daughtry album. Well, that was released before Silverbird was started. Silverbird took 2 years to come to fruition, um, and I think we were getting to know each other. I mean, Adam Faith was the major producer and manager. And he had a vision which, I kind of, I mean, his interpretation of my songs was something that I had to kind of match up to, if you like. So there's some really sort of almost filmic big productions in that first album. And they weren't the way that I saw the songs initially. And I don't think they were the way that David Courtney saw them as well. But that's what became. We went on this journey together. And basically what came out was, well, it's talked about now as a classic album in a way. But I think that if you look at artists and their first album, I look at David Bowie, his first big album, look at Mark Bolan, look at God, Springsteen. Everybody's putting a toe in the water and trying to find a route ahead, you know. So I think that when you say kind of there's a bit of novelty in it, of course, because of the Piero image, but that was the time, just like Bowie with Ziggy. We were looking for something, some way to express ourselves, And because we didn't have video in those days, look at Peter Gabriel with Genesis as well. I mean, and David Byrne with Talking Heads. There's a lot of image kind of building in a stage show. That's how it started because we were trying to do. I mean, I was touring in 1970, the end of 72, with Roxy Music. And you're trying to kind of beat those guys on stage and make people look at you. So the Piro is a good device, to make people stop. And in the end, Roxy threw me off the tour because I was a bit of a threat because we were getting such attention for me walking on like that. It was theatre, and that's how we started. And I think that album as well, Silverbird, was theatre, because it was, as I say, big scenarios, very moody kind of, and little kind of torch songs in between, like Slow Motion and Good Night Old Friend, are kind of very unusual pieces. But I tell you, at that time of my life, like so many of those debut album guys that I've mentioned, we all thought it was going to maybe we're going to get found out and we'd never make another album. So you threw everything into that first shot, because you didn't know how long it was going to last. None of us could predict that this genre that we're in would have lasted so long. I mean, would you have conceived that Bob Dylan is still touring at, what is it, 82, 84? Would you believe that Mick Jagger and Paul McCartney are still going? I mean, none of us thought that it would last this long. We thought that we were just the zeitgeist of the times, of the
The Show
time.
Must Go On was the first big hit for Leo Sayer in Australia, number 10 on the Australian charts, number 2 on the UK charts. Leo Sayer is our guest ahead of his return to Southeast Queensland. Now, Leo, with the next album, we had the Long Tall Glasses and One Man Band songs, the Just a
Oh,
Boy
yeah.
album, that was quite a big breakthrough for you, wasn't it? Because it was a lot more commercial, and you were by that point a big star across the UK.
Well, now, as production, if you look at it as making albums, we'd learned some stuff, in that first album, and now looking, David and I had written a lot more songs. We decided also to release One Man Band as the first single of that album, because it had been successful on the Roger Daltrey solo album, which David and I had provided the songs for, and Adam as well, a couple of the songs. So we decided, like, now we could be bullish because something was happening. I'd already been to America for the first time. I'd traveled. I don't think I'd traveled to Australia yet. It was just after Just a Boy, but we we saw something, really coming on. So there was some confidence all of a sudden, oh, hang on, this is happening. So now's the time to kind of, well, stretch out in one way, but also, if not completely stretch out, find a style, as it were. And I think that Just a Boy arguably has a style to it all the way through. It's pretty much, there's my live band in there playing a couple of the songs, but pretty much it's the same. There's a house band in there as well. Great session musicians that we had, Bob Henrit and Mike Giles and Russell Ballard, of course. Paul Keogh on guitars, some great musicians on there, which, felt like every day I went to the studio, oh, this is comfortable, rather than being, oh God, what's going to happen today? So you can hear that confidence in the whole production, the whole sound of the album and yeah, and in the songs, we're now able to choose songs rather than, God, if this one doesn't work, what the hell are we going to do next? No, we could say, well, that one's not working. Right, try this. And so we suddenly had a bigger template to work with. And as I say, I'd started live work, and that was going incredibly well. And we recorded all that album at a place called Kingsway Recorders, which was owned by Deep Purple's guys, particularly Ian Gillan, the lead singer. They owned that studio, and the engineers were fantastically established engineers. They produced Fleetwood Mac. They made Fleetwood Mac records. Deep Purple records, Smoke on the Water, all that stuff, and they really knew what they were doing. So it was a comfortable record to make in so many ways.
Well, let's hear a couple of tracks from that fantastic album, Just a Boy, One Man Band, and Long Tall Glasses. Massive hits across Australia and the UK. We're with Leo Sayer talking about his incredible career and his return to Southeast Queensland. Now, Leo, when I was a kid, I was a teenager when you were kind of coming through, and my favorite song of yours was Moonlighting, that was released in
Wow.
1975. To me, that's the best Leo Sayer ever did. But that was also an important time for you. It was a song about a roadie who fell in love with, I
Yeah,
think, the
like way back.
daughter of a police
Yeah,
officer, right?
yeah, and ran away, eloped to a place called Gretna Green, where people used to get married without. I think you could get married without your parents' permission. There was a guy. He was the local magistrate. He was called the Procurator Fiscal. Scotland always came up with completely different names for everything. So it was just on the Scottish border, on the English-Scottish border. So as you crossed over, you found this lovely little place, now a real tourist haven. If you go there, it's like a bloody hell, it's like almost a mini Dubai. It's like a shopping place where you would buy, lovely Scottish woolens and kilts and Scottish souvenirs and all that sort of stuff. So you'd go over, people would go over there and get married and come back married, and the parents wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So that was what they were going for, because there was no way the chief of police's daughter was going to be allowed by her family to marry Dave, our roadie. So if I take this back now, this was in 1960, around 68, 69, that the story starts, because I was roughly in a band. I mean, I wasn't really full time in the band, but I'd sing every now and then with this group called the Mustang Stampede, and they were a pretty kind of tight unit. They used to back soul singers that would come over from America, and sometimes I would even go with them. And I remember Solomon Burke, and hanging out with Solomon Burke and pouring his whiskey for him backstage, to make sure he was okay. And so I was learning firsthand at the feet of gods. I mean, God, these guys. I mean, there was Rufus Thomas, I remember, and the people they would tour with were just amazing. Wilson Pickett, um, and these were voices that, oh my God, were just so amazing. I mean, all of us loved soul music at that time, so I was learning very fast by being in that band and being in that situation. And this lovely girl, Caroline, was madly in love with Dave. And one day, it completely truthfully, like the song, as we always used to meet at this Mexican Hat, the club in Montague Street, in the song. We noticed they had all these bags and everything, and we also couldn't find the post office van that Dave used to drive. But now it was painted blue, so we didn't recognize it on the way. And none of us in the band, none of us in the group, and they were very tight-lipped, saying, "Yeah, we're just going to do some washing." They had these big, garbage bags full of clothes, and that's how they went. They thought they'd sneak out with an excuse. They didn't even take a suitcase. So, and we didn't see them for days, and that's what happened. It was so. I'd remembered that story while we were recording the third album. Now I'd split with David, because Adam wanted David to. I don't know. He seemed to engineer a split between us, which was a bit sad, because he and I were. Well, I'd been putting together loads of lyrics and waiting for Dave. I suddenly had melodies to go with them, in my head as I'm formulating them. And one of them was Moonlighting, this story. Um, and so I found a guy that was a mate of my roadie, at the time, Paul, called Frank Farrell. And Frank was musical director at the time for Rocky Horror Show, and he'd also started. He was a founding member of the group Supertramp, so he knew what he was doing. He could play keyboards. A wonderful bass player, and I put him in my band as well, playing bass. And I just mentioned him one day. Look, I've got all these songs, and I can't get hold of David. I don't think he wants to work with me. He's working on a solo project. I can't hang on. These songs have got to come out. And he says, "Well, I'll help you." So he sat down at the piano, and boy, suddenly we had a writing partnership. So I described to him my ideas and he interpreted it. A little bit like the story of Sly Stone that we're seeing now, where he used to go to the band with all these ideas. Poor old Sly, I loved Sly. Um, but R.I.P., but Sly used to go with the band and they would then fashion it. So Frank added a lot to my ideas, really, really sort of, gave them wings, as it were. And I'm so proud of Another Year. I think it probably is the best album. But the weird thing is that Adam didn't have much confidence in me at the time. I think he was looking for maybe an exit or something like that. So he gave us a ridiculously short time to make the album. But I think we still produced, a great. I think that's my favorite album actually out of all of them.
Well, Moonlighting is my favorite all-time Leo Sayer song. It was number 13 in Australia, number 2 in the UK. 22nd of August 1975. Leo Sayer is with us as we look back on the early part of his career, and he's still going strong, coming back to Southeast Queensland on September the 6th, a Saturday night. Now, when you think about your career, the big step that you made with the Endless Flight album, that was really where you became a megastar. Of course, that was produced by Richard Perry, and it had hits like You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. How strategic was it to kind of get in the disco wave a little bit with a song about dancing at that time?
Well, that was complete happenstance. It was the music. Look, Adam had this idea that after Another Year didn't hit the heights as an album that we wanted it to hit. He said, "Look, I don't think I can produce you any longer. So I think you've got to find a producer." And things were really happening. I'd done my second tour of America now, and the reaction over there was fantastic. Long Tall Glasses was a hit, not a huge hit, but it was a hit. And One Man Band was a success out there as well. So don't forget, The Show Must Go On was covered by Three Dog Night and went like right to number one in one of the charts there. So, America was beckoning, as it were, and Adam felt that if I had an American producer, we could really make something worldwide. Rod Stewart had just been there and made Atlantic Crossing with Tom Dowd, and we all know with Sailing and the songs that came out of there, that really changed Rod's career, that album. So we'd seen that kind of, and the idea of the Atlantic Crossing was exactly what we were going to do. So we were going to take Leo to America, give him an American producer. Now, at first, it was difficult for Richard and I to work out what the hell we were going to do because he saw the voice, but he didn't like my songwriting as much. So I wasn't really originally targeted to be doing very many of my own songs, but that kind of came along. Richard had a group of writers that he'd worked with before, and I started working with them. So we created some hits, even with those guys. But You Make Me Feel Like Dancing came along as a complete chance. I mean, it was just me listening to soul music. The drummer Jeff Porcaro with Toto on the album. He and I became really good friends, and we'd listen to the radio on the way in, and we'd always compare notes when we get to the studio. Hey, what did you hear? What did you hear? And so we'd both been listening to this song by Shirley and Company. I think it was on KMET or something like that, or a big called KLAX. That's what it was on one of the big shows. So he was listening to it. I was listening to it on the radio that morning. So he said, "Wow, what a groove, man!" And I was saying, "Oh, God, I love that." The singer is kind of like it might be a guy, but he's got this ridiculous falsetto voice. So, hey, we should try something on that. So, in a break in the recording project, in the recording plan that day, I think we were recording another song, and Richard just turned around and said, "Hey guys, we've got to change tapes. Just jam a bit, hang in there. Don't lose the song you're working on, but try something." And so we started jamming on that song, and Ray Parker Jr. came up with a great guitar lick. He now claims, of course, he wrote the song, but that's not quite true, brother Ray. And John Barnes, Marvin Gaye's pianist, was on keyboards. Willie Weeks was on bass, wonderful bass player, with Donny Hathaway and Aretha Franklin and everybody. And Jeff Porcaro of Toto, fame and Boz Scaggs' record Lowdown was on drums. So we just hit this groove, and unbeknownst to me and the rest of the guys in the room, Richard was recording it. He slammed a tape on apparently and record this, guys. So about 3 weeks later, when I'm kind of going to meet him in his office and we're going upstairs and we're talking about things, he said, "Listen to this. This is your hit." So it was just the jam, there was just the first part of it. And I think somewhere in there I said, "You got a cute way of talking." I think that was the only lyric that was in there. And I might have said, "I feel like dancing," or something like that in there as well. And Richard said, "Look, that's the bones of a hit. If you could do something, especially with the dancing line." So we found this guy who was a friend of Richard's, also a producer, Vinnie Poncia, who produced the first Kiss album, and he'd also worked on songs with Ringo Starr that Richard had produced, and other artists as well that Richard had produced. And he was a good hand, to write songs. So I sat down with him, and I think in 5 minutes we had the chorus. He had a great idea of transitioning with a key change, and yeah, wow. And let's use your "You make me feel like dancing" line, Leo. And I went, "Yeah, okay." So bang, the song took 20 minutes to write, to create. And it, as I say, it's happenstance. It came out of nowhere. It just came out of listening to the radio, loving the vibe around being in Los Angeles, working with great musicians, grooving off what we were doing together. It was a kind of chemistry thing. And I always look on it these days, I always call it the chemistry set of my career, because it was just a case of get the Bunsen burner going, pour some oil on, and watch the smoke, and it came together like that. And who would have known? I mean, it's been my biggest record ever.
You Make Me Feel Like Dancing was number one in the US, number two in the UK, and number two in Australia. Excuse me.
Yes.
With Leo Sayer marking his incredible career and as he heads back to Southeast
Funny, I
Queensland.
must I must make a point there. Aria don't recognize it. It's
Really?
not in there. Yeah, it went to number two in the radio charts, but they've never recognized it. They've got it as something like 26 or something like that. It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I've produced all these hits in Australia, and I live here, and but I've never been to the ARIA Awards, and they've never mentioned me. So I seem to be a foreign artist. But that's cool. That's cool. It played like mad on radio. I mean, I made so many friends of Australian DJs because of that song. It's because they say they never stop playing it. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Well, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing really was the song that catapulted Leo Sayer into pop stardom, really Hall of Fame status. And he's our guest as we look forward to his return to Twin Towns on September the 6th. Now, I used to live in London, as I've mentioned to you, Leo, and
Oh, yeah.
I lived in Shepherd's Bush. But I know you wrote a song called Orchard Road that was supposedly about Singapore, where I also live, but was actually about
It wasn't.
Acton, which is very close to Shepherd's Bush.
Yeah. Well, it's a strange song because I went through a crazy moment of fame. Of being famous is crazy. You have fans that kind of chase you around, and a young girl who was a big fan. I think it was one summer we had to go by train because there was snow. Would you believe, in England? I'm sure you'd remember that. The seasons can be topsy-turvy. So anyway, we went by train, and this girl was in the next carriage, and somehow, we met up, and she was cute and everything. So I had an affair with her, and the affair lasted a little while during my marriage. And in the end, I fessed up to my first wife, Janice, and told her that I was falling in love with this young girl, and boy, I was going to try and live with her. God, I don't know what I was thinking, but as I moved her into the house, a big house I had in those days, and I moved my ex-wife now, Janice, into a flat, which she was quite happy about. She said, "You go and sort it out. Meanwhile, I need a place to live." So I found her a place in Acton, very near Shepherd's Bush, in a street called Churchfield Road. And so as soon as I moved the young girl, Caroline, into the house, I realized, oh no, it's not going to work out. So I took her home. She was very upset, but I took her home to her parents, and way up in Leicestershire. It was a long drive, and dropped her off that night. And as the dawn was breaking, I'm coming back down the road and I'm thinking, oh, what I've really fucked up here. I've really messed up, you know. What can I do? You'll have to bleep that. I'm sorry. Um, I thought to myself, I've really messed up. So what did I do? I went straight to Acton and I woke Janice up and I just made this apology on the phone box, you know, in the phone box by phone, chucking money into the push button A and push button B, the old phone boxes we used to have in the UK, like Doctor Who, police box. And I'm pouring the money in, and I can almost see the flat, and I can see her light come on because the phone box is just by the railway station, just at the start of Churchfield Road. And she forgave me amazingly, and we got it back together, and we had another 7 years or so of marriage. But later on, and it was about 1981 or so, I'm working with Alan Tarney in the studio. Alan Tarney's a great producer, as you know, Aha, Cliff Richard, me, so many. Life in a Northern Town. That was one of his great productions as well. So many wonderful productions, and he and I wrote the album "Living in a Fantasy" together. So this is just after that, and it's 1981, and we're in the studio trying to get something going, and he's just got delivered a wonderful Australian product, a Fairlight synthesizer made by two Australian wonderful, a sampling synthesizer. So we've got an old theatre organ sound going on, and he's playing this Bach music, and he's entranced by it, and he's saying, God, listen to this, it's great. So he starts playing sort of Bach, come, say, Procol Harum type chords, and I just went to the mic, and for some reason, the whole story came out. There was nothing written down on paper. It was just me, to tell the truth. It's really such a sad affair, standing here in the cold night air. The whole thing just came out in one streak. And after that, we sat down. We went, oh my God, what have we got here? And we were making hand signals to each other as he's in the control room and I'm outside in the vocal booth. And we got this thing done. And we said, God, we can't change that. You know, but it sounds really good. Let's play it to Adam Faith, the manager. So he came down to see us and we put it on and he said, sensational, just release it. And we went, yeah, but it's only a demo. And no, he said, you've got to release that. So we added, I think, one more keyboard, kept the vocal was exactly the same. I might have touched up a couple of lines, but basically, yeah, that's it with a Linn drum machine, a drum machine just going in the background. We didn't change that. I mean, we put it down very quickly. It was on multi-track tape. We could have put real drums to it, and we could have put a bass guitar to it. We could have put guitar, and we could have put some backing vocals maybe. But no, we did nothing. We just put it out like that, and it's kind of iconic, isn't it?
It is. Orchard Road was the song that was changed from Churchfield Road in Acton to Orchard Road. And of course, all the people in Singapore where I used to live love that song. Leo Sayer is with us, and we're looking ahead to his show. Finally, Leo, what can people expect as you kind of celebrate 20 years living in Australia? In 2009, you became an Aussie citizen. What can we expect in your show at Twin Towns coming up?
Well, I'm in this marvelous time in my life, having turned 77 the other week, where, you can really look objectively at your past work. And I think what you do is you mentally deconstruct and reconstruct a lot of things. So I'm blessed with having a wonderful band in England that work with me when I'm there, and a wonderful band in Australia. And the guys in Australia, they love it when I throw them little curveballs and say, hang on, in Moonlighting, what about if we introduced a little bit of rock and roll into the chorus? So instead of playing da 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 da, we go dum da 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 dum, a little bit of swing into there. So they are able to, add those elements. So the songs are never sounding that we're never going to play them exactly the same as we play them, we played them on the record. You can't do that. I couldn't sing them exactly the same because they're 30, 40, 50, 60, almost 60 years old, some of them. So what can you do? So you just kind of like, as I say, slightly reconstruct them. I mean, they still sound like, they're recognized. Well, everybody cheers when they hear the opening lines, but they might have changed a little bit. They've developed with time. And I think that's cool, and the audience seem to think that's cool. So, songs grow. So we perform all of the hits, and we perform a lot of the most popular songs from albums. Like songs like "Train" from Just a Boy. That's always in there. You know, um, songs like "I Can't Stop Loving You." "Raining in My Heart" is always a big part of the show as well, because we use that for a bit of a harmonica and guitar duet. I'm back to playing a lot of harmonica in the show now as well. So we're taking elements from those songs and shifting them into modern life as well. A few of them, so I think that that's what the audience enjoy. That we're taking you on a nostalgic journey, but we're taking you with a feeling of, what is the time now and how that comes in. And yet there is no cleverness in there. There's no sequencing or taped stuff or effects or anything like that. We're five guys, working off each other on stage. And I'm very proud of that. It's a bit like Springsteen's show, where it's all real, natural playing. And McCartney as well. This is what we do. We've always worked like this. So we can't kind of suddenly go on and be Justin Timberlake or Beyonce, can we? And have dancers and backing tracks and all that sort of stuff. Good for them, because they put on an incredible show. Even Taylor Swift, there's a lot of like recorded stuff that comes in and out, and dancing and all that sort of stuff. No, we don't do that. I mean, I jig about a bit in my old man sort of dance way, but people still seem to believe that I've got the energy, so that's good. But
Well,
yeah, all the hits in the show, um, everything that you expect is in there, and with a little bit of a modern take on it.
well, Leo, say we're looking forward to seeing you back at Twin Towns on Saturday, September the 6th. Safe travels to the UK. We really appreciate you joining us. You are such a legend and such a gentleman.
Thank you. And let me say that although we've only got a few dates together at the moment, we are planning to come to Adelaide, Brisbane, of course. Hopefully, we can come further north and maybe do Cairns or Townsville. That would be really nice. But, into next year, we're going to carry this on. So basically, they're just making it easier for an old man, by basically, I mean, you could put like 30 gigs together before the end of October. But no, everybody's taking it easy with me, and they just want me to get a nice break between the dates. So a lot of people have come on to Facebook and things like that and said, "Why isn't he doing this? And why isn't he doing that?" We're going to do them all. So we will be back in Queensland after Twin Towns and do more shows, going on into next year. So looking forward to that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Leo Sayer. You're not going to slow down. Keep going. We love what you
No,
do.
no, absolutely. The energy is still there. I'm going to sing until I drop. Okay.